This is going to be a mini documentary on acclaimed actress and filmmaker Greta Gerwig. Why Greta Gerwig, you ask? The answer is simple. Her rise in the film industry was an unorthodox one, as she didn't take the same route many actors and filmmakers do. This is admittedly going to be a bit of a biased video. I personally happen to be a fan. The road to get to where she is now was a hard one. She grinded to get to where she is today. From once a supporting actor in a mumblecore film, to becoming one of the most talked about and acclaimed directors working today. Her filmography as both an actress and a filmmaker screenwriter started in the mid-2000s, during the infamous mumblecore movement. She was a key figure in the movement and had various directing and actor partnerships with filmmakers whom had claimed the movement for themselves, such as Joe Swanberg, who you may know for films such as Drinking Buddies or Netflix's Win It All, as well as the Duplass brothers, who also started their careers writing and directing mumblecore cinema, with films such as Baghead or Hannah Takes the Stairs, films that both starred Greta Gerwig. Now, how Greta got to this point in her career was an interesting one, so let's talk a little bit about her upbringing. Greta grew up a native of Sacramento, California. Her parents were both middle-class workers, and she went to an all-girls Catholic high school. Elements of her life were used in both the films Frances Ha and her acclaimed 2017 directorial debut, Lady Bird, but we'll get to that later. Greta at first wanted to be a ballet dancer. This is what she said about her upbringing as a dancer. I was an intense child. When I loved an activity, I had trouble doing it halfway. It was scary with ballet. I would have gone to class 4 hours a day, 7 days a week if I could have, and it's kind of a cultish world. Relationships between ballet dancers and students aren't always totally normal. And my teacher, she was British and had been to the Royal Ballet School, gave everybody ballet names, which put my mom over the edge. She still had shown some early interest in dance, but ended up going to school at Barnard College in New York City, since her mother wasn't willing to pay for more dance schooling. At Barnard, she earned her degree in English and philosophy. She even worked with the likes of Kate McKinnon at a Columbia University varsity show. You may know her now as one of the lead stars of SNL, as well as her other numerous ventures in acting. Greta initially intended to be a playwright, but turned to acting due to not getting into any MFA programs. While she was still studying at Barnard, she was able to get a small role in Joe Swanberg's 2006 film LOL, which was a mumblecore movie. She also starred in Swanberg's next film, Hannah Takes the Stairs, which was technically her first lead role in any feature film. In the film, she played a woman who falls in love with two men at the same time, while attempting to find some direction in her life.
Be the funny one, and I'm never the funny one. That's not true. You are the funny one. Not when he's around.
Gerwig was credited as not only the lead, but also as a co-writer of the movie. She also starred alongside fellow mumblecore film director Mark Duplass, who is now a key member of the independent film community, along with his brother Jay. First off, for those of you who don't know what the genre of mumblecore is, this is the correct definition. A style of low-budget filmmaking typically characterized by the use of non-professional actors in naturalistic or improvised performances, which means that these films were almost entirely improvised and usually only have a treatment or a set piece designed by the director or writers. These films are usually very low budget and allow for more freedom when filming, since this was not at all a traditional or conventional way of filmmaking. Say what you want about mumblecore in general, but it's how Greta got her start in the film industry. She was, for lack of a better term, the it girl for this wave of making movies. She worked a lot more times in mumblecore, with films such as Nights and Weekends, which stars both Swanberg and Greta Gerwig as a couple. She also worked in another mumblecore film entitled Yeast, about toxic relationships, helmed by filmmaker Mary Bronstein. After her venture into the mumblecore scene, she started trying to do more traditional films. She managed to snag a supporting role in the 2009 horror film The House of the Devil. It was an independent film which got some decent reviews. However, despite that, the film performed poorly at the box office, having been made for just under $1 million and only making just over $100,000 in the box office.
I'm so sick of hearing about that stupid eclipse. It's like all anybody can ever talk about. They're like, oh gosh, are you gonna go see the eclipse tonight?
Her second venture into more traditional films was Noah Baumbach's 2009 film entitled Greenberg, a film starring her and Ben Stiller in lead roles. The film was about a young woman's relationship with a divorced man, who after suffering a mental breakdown is about to house sit for his brother's home in Los Angeles, and falls for his brother's assistant played by Gerwig. The film got some decent reviews and was by no means bad, but it still ultimately failed to make money, which put Greta between a rock and a hard place as she went through a slight wave of depression. She ended up not working for almost a year after the failure. In an interview with The Guardian, she states, "I was really depressed. I cried a lot. It was a hard year. I was 25 and thinking, this is supposed to be the best time, and I'm miserable. Looking back, I wish I had taken the time and written more, but it felt like acting was happening for me, and I went back to acting classes. The blessing and the curse of my life is that I think I thrive when I have a singular purpose and a calling. Actually, I'm the happiest when I'm doing lots of things, and I have to reconcile that." Even though the film was technically a failure, her performance was praised by many, and luckily, she managed not to be out of work for that long. She had worked on a film entitled Art House, which was about a group of friends who use a house for paintings and such. She also started another mumblecore film entitled Northern Comfort, which was actually made before her work in Greenberg. Interestingly, Noah Baumbach had plans to write a new up-and-coming HBO television series entitled The Corrections in 2011, with Greta Gerwig set to star in the lead alongside actors Ewan McGregor and Chris Cooper. Unfortunately, HBO had failed to commission it, and the project was abandoned. In the same year, she had worked on a couple of films such as the Sony Pictures Classics film Damsels In Distress, and the remake of the movie Arthur, which in the former she had a lead role, and in the latter she played the love interest of Russell Brand.
917-176-2030. Do you remember that?
Both films were modest failures box office-wise, with Damsels in Distress not recouping its money and Arthur only grossing $45 million on a $40 million budget, failing to make its money back with the money used to market the movie. In 2012, she would embark on her rise to stardom, as she was casted in 3 films, one of which she played a supporting character in the Woody Allen ensemble movie To Rome with Love, which made money and was a modest success. She also starred in 2 films in which she was the lead, a film called Lola Versus, and one of my personal favorite films, Frances Ha, which I briefly discussed in another video not too long ago. In Frances Ha, she plays a 27-year-old woman named Frances Holliday, who works as a dancer and has a best friend named Sophie whom she's trying to maintain. She is also struggling to make a month's rent. It was her then second collaboration with acclaimed director Noah Baumbach, whom had since become her boyfriend. Through their second collaboration, she garnered her first ever Golden Globe nomination for an actress in a leading role, musical or comedy.
That other dimensions exist all around us, but we don't have the ability to perceive them. That's what I want out of a relationship. Or just life, I guess.
It is widely regarded as one of her best films, as well as one of Noah's best, respectively. The character of Frances Holliday suited Greta Gerwig so well, and her performance was a commanding one that resonated with a lot of audiences. It would be a couple of years before she acted in a film again, partly due to her work on a CBS pilot that again went nowhere.
We shot the pilot, and it was so much fun, and I loved working on it. And then they take the pilot to Las Vegas, and they
It's like a focus group.
Yeah, they test it, and the audience they're given knobs, and they turn the knob to the right if they like it, and to the left if they don't. And apparently, they turned the knob to the left every time I came on.
She was soon casted in a film by veteran filmmaker Barry Levinson called The Humbling, which starred herself alongside acting legend Al Pacino. It was a film about an aging actor who strikes a relationship with an ex-girlfriend's daughter. It had went under the radar and not many people really know about it. Noah and Greta's third collaboration was a little film entitled Mistress America, which starred Greta and up-and-coming actress Lola Kirk in the lead roles respectively. The film centered on a young writing student whom encounters this optimistic, outgoingly charismatic woman who was soon to be a stepsister, played by Greta Gerwig. Through this film, Greta had another dazzling performance and Noah's writing complemented her work very well. This is the time in her career that I believe she started to get roles more frequently. She also officially started to exclusively do films with actual budgets rather than the low-budget independent route that had originally started her career. She wasn't doing any blockbusters or anything, and to this day has yet to star in any comic book movie of any kind. She started working with more and more acclaimed actors, such as Annette Bening in 2016's 20th Century Women, as well as Natalie Portman in the film Jackie, which was released the same year as the former.
I don't know. I think you should just try it without it.
We've been together a long time, haven't we, Nancy?
Mm-hmm.
If you ever want to have an adult relationship with a woman, like if you want to have sex with a woman's vagina, you need to be comfortable with the fact that the vagina menstruates. And just say menstruation, it's not a big deal. So start saying it now. Menstruation.
Both of those films were acclaimed and actually garnered plenty of award nominations, with talk of her getting a nod for her performance in 20th Century. Even though she ended up not getting a nomination, she was still praised for the performance and was seen in a different light than her usual filmography. She played a cancer-surviving woman living with Annette Bening's character and is recruited to help raise her son. This is when she started to get into the directing route. After co-writing with her partner Noah on numerous projects, it was only natural that in an industry in need of more female filmmakers, Greta would try her hand at directing. She soon teamed up with acclaimed producer Scott Rudin and rising film distributor A24 to produce a semi-autobiographical film about her life in Sacramento entitled Lady Bird. I am sure most of you already know of the impact that Lady Bird in 2017 had and still has on current film culture, but in case you don't, I'll run it down for you. Lady Bird became one of A24's highest grossing films and received near unanimous acclaim by critics and audience members alike. Saoirse Ronan was cast in the lead as Christine Lady Bird McPherson, and the film follows her during her senior year of high school, some of the relationships she's had, as well as her interactions with her family, specifically with her mother played by Laurie Metcalf. She chose Laurie Metcalf to play the role of Lady Bird's mother due to watching her stage work, since she did a lot of plays. She also auditioned and casted Lucas Hedges and gave him the decision on which male character he wanted to play. He chose Danny. Timothée Chalamet was then casted as Kyle. She wanted to shoot the film on Super 16mm, but due to the expensive nature of the film stock and budget restraints, she opted to shoot it on the Arri Alexa Mini. The film is visibly grainy due to some digital noise added in post-production to achieve that 16mm film effect. Lady Bird, as I've mentioned previously, takes a lot from Greta's upbringing growing up in Sacramento. When asked about the film's take on friendships when you're a teenager, Greta explains, "Well, I wanted to explore the fact that when you're a teenager, you're trying to figure out who you are through the refraction of other people, each reaching for a definition of oneself through relationships and sometimes rejecting the ones that are close to you because you are sure that someone else is better. Someone would reflect a better self to you. It's like wanting to be reflected back as cooler than you are somehow." A lot of people resonated with the film, teenagers and older individuals alike. The film garnered multiple acting nominations for both Ronan and Metcalf, including Oscar nominations for both Best Lead Actress and Supporting Actress, respectively. She then made her stamp as the only woman to be nominated for Best Director since Kathryn Bigelow won it back in 2008. With that, she instantly solidified her stature as a film director in the industry. You can tell that with Lady Bird, she used a lot of what she learned working with Bumbox Movies. Most of her films are very grounded and rely mostly on dialogue to drive the story forward. Lady Bird was one of the best scripts of 2017 and quite frankly of the decade. It was such a personal film for Greta, and she made sure the actors recited the lines word for word while filming, which is ironic considering she was brought up on improvising lines in mumblecore movies.
The script is really a pretty set document, and you don't change anything. You don't change any of the words. There's no improv.
There's no improv.
No, I'm not interested in it. He's not interested in it.
It's funny because you came up that way.
It is.
She had truly changed as an artist. Not to say what she was doing before wasn't without merit, but rather on the contrary, it was full of it. However, Greta grew as a storyteller and started to plan everything from the get rather than wing anything to avoid the risk of losing quality or authenticity. Now, that brings us to her latest venture. She recently tackled an adaptation of the 1968 novel Little Women, which again stars Saoirse Ronan, as well as Florence Pugh, Emma Watson, Eliza Scanlon, and Timothée Chalamet, whom had already worked with both Greta and Saoirse on Lady Bird. The film is an adaptation that is not only faithful to the source material, but is also original in a lot of ways. Gerwig chooses to take some liberties with the story structure, and the film is cut together, going back and forth from when the sisters are kids to when they are grown adults. This is how it was originally written in Gerwig's script, and this is how it was ultimately cut together by film editor Nick Hoy. The Little Women novel was released in 2 volumes, both of which showcase different time periods in the characters' lives. In an interview with Film Comment, Greta explains her reasoning behind the liberty she took with the adaptation. To me, it's the fairy tale versus what life is. In the first book, she gets sick, then she gets better, and in the second book, she gets sick, and then she dies. And it was that doubling that made me think, well, what if we could layer these 2 things on top of each other? Because in my experience of a lot of fiction about women, there's this sense that all the adventures happen when you're a girl or a teenager, and as soon as you become an adult, it's all over. And I cannot have that be the story we're telling young women. I felt like I wanted to give the March women back what they had as girls. It's honestly one of my personal favorite films of the year, and may even grab Gerwig her second Oscar nod for Best Director. Everything about the film to me is ravishing. The writing, the direction, the production design, the costume design, and the wonderful score by Alexander Desplat, as well as the breathtaking cinematography by cinematographer Yorick Lesoy. Needless to say, Little Women 2019 is an extremely pleasant watch. Greta Gerwig's career has been anything but conventional. She started doing films that practically no one saw outside the film scene. She became sort of an it girl for mumblecore and indie films, but slowly but surely began to elevate past that and into mainstream success. Now she is essentially one of the most accomplished female film directors and is one of the most recognized film directors in general working today, male or female. Her career is just at its beginning stages, yet she has accomplished so much more than a lot have in the film industry. She is currently working on another film with Noah Baumbach, a live-action Barbie film which is set to star Margot Robbie. I'm very interested to see how that will all go. There is also talk of her filming a musical involving tap dancing, which if it does, would probably be even better than La La Land, and I really like La La Land. Greta is a tour de force filmmaker, and I hope she continues to make films for decades to come. She's a director that I look up to, as well as many others do. Thanks for watching.